Hey everybody, Eric here. Thanks so much for tuning into today's video. Hope you're going okay. Now I've got something interesting that I want to share with you, and it is basically PAL versus NTSC. So let's talk about it. So I'm originally from the United States, of course, and I live in Australia, and I've lived in Australia for like the last 8 years or so. And I've only really recently started getting into Super Nintendo collecting again. I had a collection back home, most of which is with me now, which you can see in my last video, which is the Holy Grail pickups, which all my United States Super Nintendo games are now finally with me. When I started to get back into Super Nintendo games, I started buying some PAL games. So here we have a Australian copy of Super Mario World. Of course, this is a PAL variant, and the American one is right here. So for many, many years, growing up, all I understood the difference to be is purely aesthetic. So obviously the cartridges are different. The NTSC-J variants, which are the Japanese variants, use this shell, but it's NTSC region. We're going to talk about that soon. So I only understood the difference to be purely aesthetic. So when I started to play Super Mario World on my Twitch channel, which you can find the link down below, because I've got my new old Super Nintendo, a PAL Super Nintendo, and I wanted to play through it. So I played through it on Twitch. Everything looked fine, felt fine, until somebody said something in the chat. Do you notice any difference between the 50 hertz and 60 hertz for gameplay? And I said to myself, maybe, I don't know. So I started to do some investigating and experimenting. So as you can see behind me, I have my NTSC North American Super Nintendo, and here we have the PAL Super Nintendo. So what I've done is I've recorded some footage, some gameplay, and I want to compare it to you, just basically a direct feed capture showing you the comparison of Super Mario World. And I think it's pretty apparent straight away if I sync them up with the Nintendo splash screen and I just let them play side by side. Okay, so the first thing you can tell already is the colors are different between NTSC and PAL. This is just a direct raw capture. All I've done is force the aspect ratio to be the same because PAL is slightly different than NTSC. So aside from that, it's being captured through a upscaler, so I can plug it into my HDMI capture card. But aside from that, you can see that Super Mario World on PAL is slightly brighter than the NTSC version. NTSC seems to be more rich in color. The other thing too is it's very obvious that the NTSC version runs slightly faster than the PAL. So if we go ahead and scrub it back to the beginning of the gameplay here. So I've synced them up from the Nintendo splash screen audio cue and just let the demo version play. So it seems like the PAL version is slightly stalled for some actions, and the NTSC just runs a lot more fast. So the other dead giveaway is the scrolling in the background. The mountains or the parallax scrolling in the background. It seems much more seamless than the PAL variant. So it's just really interesting to compare these two. So I want to play this again, but I'm going to have both games play with both audio feeds, only just for a couple seconds, because I know it's going to be kind of annoying to hear both of the conflicting audio, but just so you can hear the difference. I just find it really fascinating. So let's go ahead and play that now. I can tell you right away that when you are playing the game, there is a really drastic difference in how this game feels. The best way I can describe it is I grew up, playing games in 60 hertz. What does that mean? Well, here's what it means. This all essentially boils down to one thing: voltage and electricity. So you can see the blue line here represents 50 hertz and the red line represents 60 hertz. This is a good visualization of utility frequency. You can see that the red line is curving much quicker than the blue line. Obviously, this is very apparent when you look at the gameplay footage between Mario NTSC and the PAL version. So why is this? Again, it all boils down to the development of commercial electric power systems in the late 1900s and early 20th centuries. There's some links in the description if you want to do some reading. I only understand so much of it. I mean, the visual cue is games. You can see right here the visual differences between the two. So interesting. And again, like I said, I would have never have known this if I didn't live overseas in a PAL region and try to play NTSC games. It's been really interesting figuring this stuff out, because the best way I can describe it is I feel like if I play the NTSC version of Super Mario World, it feels like I can just run and walk normally. But with the PAL version, it feels like I've got like a weighted backpack. Like it's just weighing me down just enough that I notice a very insignificant amount of drag on my movement. And as you play the game, especially if you A/B them, play them one after another, and the difference is just really shocking. The other thing as well, if you wanted to try and play PAL variant of Super Mario World in your NTSC Super Nintendo, I think it actually runs faster than it should, because these games essentially are programmed to run at this specific speed. So you will notice a difference in feel. And this is something that I noticed as well, because I was recently playing Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. This is a game that I can play on an Australian Super Nintendo or PAL Super Nintendo using a converter card. What you do is you take your Australian game or your PAL game and plug it into one of these. This is called a Games Master conversion card. We have two slots here. You have your slot A and slot B. Slot A is what your PAL game goes into, like this. And your NTSC game goes in slot B, like this. And then it sits in your Super Nintendo, your Australian Super Nintendo, and looks like this. It's not the prettiest looking thing, but it does work for probably 90% of NTSC Super Nintendo games. This game originally obviously runs at 60 hertz, but it does run noticeably slower. At the 50 hertz that this Super Nintendo is rated for, this particular Super Nintendo does not output that extra little 16.6666% or 20% or whatever it is, whatever the differential is. So when I did get my American Super Nintendo and I continued to play Super Mario RPG, I definitely noticed the difference with, you know, hit timings and stuff, or the battle system, of course, because if you hit the A button or whatever at the right time, you can do it like a critical or get extra hits or something like that. So it's definitely something that I noticed, wow, this is like a little bit more fast paced. And that's generally what you find with these games. Now, I have to say, for those of you who grew up in the PAL region, you probably never knew anything different. And that's how I was, of course. I never knew anything different growing up playing these games at 60 hertz. And I suppose this is kind of an insignificant exercise, but I thought it was something that you guys might find interesting, obviously, as people subscribe to this channel and like video games and like this kind of thing, and just trying to see the differences around the world. And this is something that I've noticed as well. You can see I've got a Sony Trinitron behind me, and this is kind of like the holy grail of televisions. And I've been looking for a CRT TV that is 60 hertz capable. So that way, when I did finally get my American Super Nintendo here behind me, it was going to display the games at the proper refresh rate or whatever, the 60 hertz that this machine is capable of outputting. And a lot of televisions, of course, on the Facebook Marketplace were great TVs, but they only displayed at 50 hertz. So it's kind of this funny thing that I mentioned this in my previous video that I've just had to learn about, of course, being somebody who now imports games from overseas, specifically the United States, because obviously that's where I'm from. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope that you learned something new today, because I know that I've been learning something new with all this stuff. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought was fascinating about this video, or maybe what your favorite game is. Make sure to like this video if you haven't already. Subscribe if you aren't already subscribed. And if you want more of me, you can check out my brand new podcast called Breakfast of Champions, where we talk about video games, life, all while I drink coffee. I think it's a great show. If you want to check it live, you can check out my Twitch channel down in the description below. The live show happens every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you can't watch it live, you can always catch the replays on YouTube. So make sure to go subscribe there. So there you go. Thanks so much again for watching. Take care, everybody. We'll see you on the next video.